your side believes it,
But
we move on.
why would they do that when I can just
know.
say that's not true?
It's bizarre.
But
It's so bizarre.
who are they going to believe? They're going to believe me or a person who literally says whatever the audience wants them to say, which is what they did.
Living. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not. Why would I lie? I have no reason to lie.
So bizarre. It would have been interesting to.
If I her over, I would tell the truth.
Yeah.
If I was like, we lied, we told her I was taking a personal day, but realized I wanted to get Trump in. Not true. I tried to do both of them in the same day. That was my idea.
That would have been amazing.
My idea was to do Trump during the day, and then her to come. She had a thing she was doing in Houston. After the thing with Houston, I go, I'll fucking do it at midnight. I don't care. We'll do it whenever you want to do it.
Yeah.
While you're in Texas, but I just can't do during the day because Trump's going to be here.
Yeah.
Podcast giant and comedian Joe Rogan just sent the internet into a frenzy after calling out Kamala Harris over what he says is a rewritten version of events in her new book. You may have heard the viral story claiming Rogan ditched an interview with Harris so he could talk with Trump instead. Well, Rogan says that's completely false. Now he's coming forward with his own timeline and receipts to clear things up. And honestly, Harris's version of the story is starting to look a little shaky under all the attention.
Well, she also has been saying something really crazy. She's been saying that this is the closest race of the 21st century and that it wasn't a mandate. That's just not true.
It's not true.
Gore and Bush was much closer.
Yes.
I think that was a 0.5%.
I don't know why she keeps saying this.
It's just a lie. And then also she's leaving out the fact that she lost every swing state. Every single one.
Yeah.
So, like, what are you talking about?
I know. It's
he
crazy.
won the popular vote and he won the electoral college vote.
Man.
And that's a mandate. Say that it's not a mandate. It's like, but it's almost like if you say it to the converted that they're going to listen and repeat it. Yeah, he barely won.
Right.
Like, no, he won.
Joe Rogan wasted no time responding to one of the biggest claims Kamala Harris has been repeating during her book tour. Harris has been calling the recent election one of the toughest and most intense battles in American history. But Rogan quickly pushed back on that idea. He pointed to the 2000 race between George W. Bush and Al Gore, reminding people how that election dragged on with recounts, court fights, and nonstop national drama for weeks. In his view, the latest election wasn't even in the same league. What seemed to bother Rogan most wasn't just the overstatement, but the bigger pattern he believes keeps happening in politics, where leaders reshape the story to make losses sound more impressive than they really were. To him, it's all part of trying to rewrite history for a stronger public image, and he clearly wasn't willing to let that pass without a response.
This is crazy talk.
Yeah. It's wild. It is so
But
wild.
she's probably hammered.
And
She's probably up there drinking wine. Kick us out next time. Kim.
It's so brutal. And I think she's took credit for the no tax on tips things in the book as well.
That's hilarious because that was clearly his.
Clearly.
He said it first and they copied it.
It's amazing.
Did she really say that in the book?
I haven't read it, but I have heard from someone who did read it that she did.
On top of criticizing the way the story was being told, Joe Rogan also took aim at what he sees as Kamala Harris taking credit for ideas that were already out there. One example he pointed to was the no tax on tips proposal, which Harris has recently been talking up on the campaign trail. Rogan argued that the idea had already been heavily pushed by Donald Trump, who spent months promoting it to restaurant workers, service employees, and small business owners. According to Rogan, once the policy started gaining attention with voters, Harris appeared ready to embrace it as part of her own platform. To him, it's a familiar political move. Step in when an idea becomes popular, take credit for the momentum, and move ahead as if the original source no longer matters.
You had to address not coming on here in the book too, which I thought was funny.
Yeah, that was interesting.
I mean, her team was not truthful about that encounter at all. They never committed to doing the show, ever.
Yeah.
They said that, I said that I had a personal day, which is not true. I said I am not available the day that Trump was here. I said that day's not, I didn't say that I have a personal day. They just made that up.
That's crazy.
And then they also said that they sent someone here to go through the studio, like sent someone to do a walkthrough.
Yeah.
Not true.
No.
Not true.
Good.
According to Joe Rogan, the truth is a lot different from the version being shared online. Rogan says he never turned down Kamala Harris for an interview. In fact, he claims it was Harris's own team that decided not to move forward. Rogan believes they may have worried about how the conversation would go once things became more open and unscripted. He said her team seemed to prefer a more controlled setting with safer questions and carefully prepared answers. From his perspective, that matches the way Harris handled many interviews during the campaign. Most of her appearances were tightly managed. And even longer interviews, including her sit-down on 60 Minutes, came across to some viewers as highly polished and carefully structured. Rogan says that's the bigger issue. Many politicians work hard to protect their public image, especially when they're facing an unpredictable conversation with no script to rely on.
Yeah, I'm not. Why would I lie? I have no reason to lie.
So it would have been interesting to.
If I her over, I would tell the truth.
Yeah.
If I was like, we lied, we told her I was taking a personal day, but realized I wanted to get Trump in. Not true. I tried to do both of them in the same day. I'll do it at midnight. I don't care. We'll do it whenever you want to do it.
Yeah.
While you're in Texas, but I just can't do during the day because Trump's going to be here.
Yeah.
But they had to have known. I mean, the Secret Service there was 200 guys here. They had
in Texas.
No, in this studio.
No.
There was 200 people here for Trump.
For Trump. Yeah.
I mean, I'm not exaggerating. It was packed.
Wow.
It was packed.
That's crazy,
bro. They didn't f around.
Okay.
They did not f around. They surrounded the building. It was nuts.
Joe Rogan didn't hold back when talking about Kamala Harris. He argued that she changes her message depending on who she's speaking to, saying one thing to one crowd and something completely different to another. In his view, Harris moves between progressive and moderate positions whenever it seems politically useful. Rogan joked that he wouldn't even be shocked if she suddenly flipped on major issues just to connect with a new group of voters. For him, that's the bigger concern. He believes there's no clear set of principles underneath the polished public image. Rogan says that's also why she appears cautious about unscripted interviews, because those situations can make it harder to stay tightly on message. To him, her political style feels carefully managed and constantly shifting, driven more by public approval than by firm beliefs.
There was 200 people here for Trump.
For Trump. Yeah.
I mean, I'm not exaggerating. It was packed.
Wow.
It was packed.
That's crazy,
bro. They didn't f around.
Okay.
They did not f around. They surrounded the building. It was nuts.
Interesting.
Yeah. They made sure that everything was safe and secure.
Wow.
So, like, someone had to know something that he was here. Like, it's not a mystery. But I
Bringing
said,
the dogs through.
But I wasn't trying to be deceptive. I said, I'll do it later.
Right.
I just can't do it during this time.
That's the excuse they took.
They want to do it.
That's like, okay, they took that excuse.
They never wanted to do the whole thing.
Never.
Here's how Rogan tells it. He says the Harris camp never really planned to do the interview in the first place and were looking for a way out from the start, knowing a conversation with him wouldn't be scripted or controlled. According to Rogan, when Donald Trump was scheduled to be nearby with his security detail, that suddenly became the excuse to step back, and what was framed as a safety concern turned into the reason to cancel. He claims Harris's team then backed out and shifted the blame onto him, making it look like he was the obstacle while they avoided a tougher, unscripted conversation. Rogan called it a political dodge, saying it felt like a move to avoid risk while protecting their message, and argued it was more about control of the narrative than anything else.
They never wanted to do the whole thing.
Never.
They wanted to do like a 45-minute thing in a different place. They didn't say scripted, but they did say that there were some things that she didn't want to talk about. And then they denied that.
Yeah. That's what I meant by scripted. Yeah.
I said I don't care. I'll talk to you about cooking. I don't give a I just want to know, who are you? I'll figure you out.
Yeah.
I'll figure you out in a few hours.
Yeah, in 3 hours, you can't fake your way through a conversation like this.
No, I'll find you.
Yeah.
I'll find you.
Yeah.
I'll ask you controversial things. Like, it's all I have to do is ask you, why is the border open? We can talk about that for 3 hours.
Oh, my gosh.
Hold on a second. According to Joe Rogan, the Harris camp was actually aiming for a tightly controlled, scripted-style interview, not an open-ended conversation. He claims they wanted everything prepped in advance, questions filtered, tone managed, and answers carefully rehearsed so nothing was left to chance, almost like a campaign ad dressed up as a talk show appearance. Rogan says that's pretty normal in politics, but it still doesn't sit right with a lot of people, because viewers want to hear the real Kamala Harris, not just polished talking points shaped by advisors. He argues he was pushing for something more honest and unscripted, while her team leaned toward control and message protection. And in his view, that only reinforced his point about how managed modern political interviews can be. Anyway, here's what Harris herself said about why that Rogan interview never happened. Let's roll the clip.
Kamala Harris has a new book titled 107 Days, and in it, she addresses the now infamous interview that never was with Joe Rogan. And apparently, she was very excited to do the interview. She really was. So why didn't it happen? Well, let's start with what Harris said happened, and then we'll give you Rogan's side of the story. So Harris writes that she and Rogan had initially agreed that he would interview her in Detroit, which I don't believe. Rogan is not a journalist and he doesn't travel around the country to interview politicians. He does a podcast, his guests come to where he is, and he does a 2.5 hour to 3 hour long podcast with his guests.
I've literally never seen him travel.
Quick question. Have you ever seen Joe Rogan do a political interview anywhere outside his Texas studio? If you can name one, most people can't, because he usually sticks to his own setup, which is part of what makes his conversations feel long-form, raw, and unfiltered. So when Kamala Harris and her team started giving different reasons for why the interview didn't happen, first logistics, then security, then scheduling, it started to raise questions for some observers. The shifting explanations didn't all seem to line up, and instead of settling the issue, they only added more debate around it. At a certain point, you just move on. But each new reason kept fueling the idea that her team wasn't comfortable with an unscripted setting, and instead of helping her image, the back and forth ended up creating even more doubt and criticism.
According to her, he changed his mind and asked her to record in Texas. Harris said that was a big ask considering every minute in a swing state mattered at that point late in the election, but she wrote that she was game despite reservations from some of her team if they could wedge it in.
So you're gonna go do some rando thing in a swing state that's not gonna get any media coverage because you're just doing a cheerleading thing with talking points. We saw it, nobody covered those events. Instead of going on the largest podcast in America where you could literally reach, what did Trump's get, about 100 million views? Something in that ballpark? So you chose not to address 100 million people because you were gonna do an irrelevant rah-rah event at a swing state? Do you know how politically negligent that is?
Yeah, I've got to agree with Tank here. This wasn't just a small misstep, it's being framed by critics as a missed opportunity. Instead of going on the Joe Rogan podcast, one of the biggest long-form platforms in the world, Kamala Harris focused her time on traditional campaign stops in swing states. Supporters say that's just normal strategy, but critics argue it looked like playing it too safe. Rogan's show, they say, could have been a chance for a direct, unfiltered conversation with a massive audience, without scripts or staged moments. Instead, she stayed in the usual campaign setup, staff around her, prepared talking points, and controlled appearances. That difference has sparked a wider debate about modern politics and whether leaders are willing to step outside their comfort zone and meet audiences where they are.
It makes it worse because the lie is so obvious. But anyway, let's
But even if it isn't a lie, Anna, it's saying, I don't know anything about modern American politics. I don't realize that going on that podcast is way more valuable to a campaign than doing an insular campaign rally where a bunch of Democrats go, are we all gonna vote for each other? Yeah. That's totally irrelevant compared to that podcast. And to this date, she still doesn't realize it.
So she also wrote, even though most of my team thought doing the interview at all was a gamble, and to be sure it was a gamble, and others bluntly argued it was a bad idea, I really wanted to do it. One podcast was not going to win or lose the election, but Rogan's audience was young and male. I wanted to reach those guys who might not otherwise hear from me.
And here we go again, another round of debate over the Joe Rogan situation involving Kamala Harris. In a recent interview, Harris said she did want to appear on the Joe Rogan podcast, but her advisors reportedly felt it wasn't the right move at the time. Critics see that explanation as too convenient, arguing it shifts responsibility away from her. At the end of the day, she was the candidate, and the final call rested with her. Rogan's show is often described as a major platform with a massive, unfiltered audience. And the fact the appearance never happened has only fueled more discussion. Supporters call it smart strategy, while critics call it a missed opportunity. Either way, it's become part of a larger conversation about how modern politicians manage media access, control their message, and choose where to show up.